everybody, and welcome to the Helen Winder Show. I'm Helen Winder, and my gorgeous guest today is Sharon Eden, the depression coach from Bounce Back. Hello Sharon, thank you for joining me.
Hi Helen, it's a pleasure.
So tell our listeners who you are, what you do, where you come from, just enlighten us.
Okay, so a little bit about me. So I'm Sharon Eden, the depression coach. And where I come from, sometimes when you're networking and things like that, and people say to you, where do you come from? I always say heaven. Absolutely heaven. It's a kind of, they stop for a minute and they wake up out of their networking mode, and then we might have a conversation. But in a way, I think that's true. Not the kind of heaven that we have a picture of, fluffy up there somewhere in the clouds, but I think that we all come from our highest self, if you like. We come into the world prepared to be the best, the most humane, loving, wonderful, creative, talented being, and then stuff happens.
Yeah.
And so we turn up perhaps not doing what we really want to be doing, not even marrying the person we really want to marry because we've been so conditioned that this is a good thing. So I think our journey really is to recreate heaven for ourselves and reclaim ourselves and live life like that. So that's really what I'm about with everybody. My particular forte is helping people recover from depression in 6 sessions or less. And people look at me in amazement when I say that. And part of that is because I have a holistic approach that includes your body, feelings, your mind, and your oomph, whatever you believe your oomph to be. And my model of depression is very different from the medical model. So if you're told that you have an illness that will take at least 2 years to recover from, what happens? You become a victim of that particular illness, aka depression, and it takes you 2 years to recover. However, if you're told that depression is part of the human condition, and it always has a personal development gift for you in it, and that you can recover quite easily and quickly, what happens then? So I get slammed on some forums when I make a comment because people who adhere to the medical model, it's just beyond their conception that there could be anything better.
I suppose the trouble is when they specialize in a certain area, that is what they've done. They've specialized in that area and read the textbooks and everything. But unless you've been there yourself and you've come out and you stood outside the box and looked in, you see it from such a different angle, don't you?
Absolutely. How do you see it, Helen?
For me personally, having had postnatal illness twice, and I had it for 13 years, I've also come through and come out the other side, not with assistance from the medical profession, but from myself. And I've understood that, actually it's made me who I am today, which is a very in tune person who, I don't know, you just become somebody different, better, and you understand yourself better.
Yeah, I think so too. And in the process you also reclaim a bit of your potential, whether that's being stronger, whether that's being having ignored being creative all your life, with your creativity and doing things, or whether that's you've been a tiny meanie mouse-like person and suddenly you discover your power and how to use it creatively in the world. So I know depression is, I call it hell on wheels, However, if we embrace it and we lean into it and cooperate with it,
Yeah.
A, we recover sooner, and I'm so sorry you had to spend 13 years in it, and B, it's part of our evolution. We can evolve through it.
We can, and it's just it's accepting it as well. And I think one of the things that I did at the beginning was I fought with it for a long time, got angry with it, but then of course it would just come back and hit hit you and bite you on the bottom.
It's simple dynamics, isn't it? You fight something, it's going to fight you back.
It certainly is, but if you relax and say, okay, hello, and go with it, it suddenly starts to sort of disappear, and then you have a day or two and you think, ooh, where's it gone?
Yeah, that's right. And people, of course, expect to, when you start recovery, that it's just a kind of linear process, but that's not the case with depression. It's waves.
It is waves, isn't
even
it? Yeah.
from minute to minute sometimes.
Yes.
Feeling, what I say is feeling more alive.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you might dip into depression again. But I always say to people when that's happening, that's great. It's telling you you're in recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, one thing I read many years ago, it was a book that my mum passed down to me, was that when you have those reminders of how you were, it's one less that you're going to have.
Yes.
And I think that's quite another way of looking at it as well.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it too.
And so how do you work with, how do people come to you, and how do you work with them? Because it's an area, isn't it, that people aren't necessarily open about. They don't want to admit to it because they don't want to feel a failure or weak or anything like that.
Absolutely. So, how do I work with it? Well, I work with it in the very holistic way that I mentioned to you.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's individual. So I don't have a plan. You don't come in, you don't get a plan that you work to. When somebody comes in, in the initial session, they devise what they want to get out of the therapy. They set an outcome, and we set then 2 behavioural indicators which they rate so that they know whether they're recovering or recovered, because they've got a baseline score, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And then we put that paperwork away and forget it. And I always say to people, if you come in to your next session and say the price of grapes is disgusting, we'll work with that.
Yeah.
Because it's your unconscious giving us a clue about where to work. Of course it's not about the price of grapes, really. It's deeper and more meaningful than that. But that's our opening. And so I work with people very much in partnership. They are their own expert. Their unconscious and their higher self and their intuition will be telling them all they need to recover. And my job is to listen to those clues. And obviously I've got loads of skills after 30 years in the field and training in many different things. I have loads of skills to help that birthing happen, as it were. And that's it. I do have what I call a protocol, which covers diet, alternative supplements, sleep, that kind of thing, which is their initial homework. But homework from a session will depend on what we've done in that session. Structure, because the structure is coming from them.
Yeah.
But I think, sum it up to say, I don't have a rigid methodology that puts people through it like sausages. I have loads. I have a central methodology, and then I have loads of techniques to be able to fit into where that person is and what will be most useful for you. In fact, I've got a book that will go to my publisher soon, which is a no-nonsense guide to depression based on the way I work, so that people who are depressed can easily follow. It's a very easy, readable book. And I have in my plan in May, I'll run my first day workshop to show other professionals how I do it in 6 sessions. And then hopefully later in the year, all being well, I'm going to introduce a training for professionals, because I don't want to die with this in me.
No.
I want to be able to show other people what I do so that they can do it too.
And I think that's so important, especially in the current ways that we live our lives. It's very fast. It's very there's a lot of things going on around us. So if we can manage it much easier and quicker and simpler, we can all apply it, can't we? Even if you don't have full, you know, depression, we all have our low spots, don't we? So even to be able to work through those.
And the same principles will apply, because on my website it says bounce back from low mood and depression. And it applies to low mood too. I just talk about depression more because there is an epidemic.
Yeah.
And the World Health Organization suggests that by 2020 it will be the major, and inverted commas, illness way above anything else across the globe. And it's a pretty, what can I say, it's a pretty awful indictment of the medical model, because if it were an illness, we wouldn't have this epidemic. And if it were an illness, well, antidepressants would cure it, but that's a whole nother conversation about antidepressants. And the thing is, it isn't an illness. It's part of the human condition. And when we learn to work with it, as we've both talked about, it has lessons for us, and we recover much quicker.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, you know, with your clientele that you have, the people that you work with, are there a mixture of business owners and people who aren't in business, or is it favourable one way to the other?
No, it's across the spectrum. People from all walks of life, all kinds of careers or jobs. So it's a real mixture.
And yeah, it's going to be, isn't it? I was just really curious, because obviously in business it's tough. It's not easy flowing, is it? And it can be very lonely as well.
It can actually. I do work with some business people, but I think unfortunately that entrepreneurs and solopreneurs are the worst, really, in some ways, because they're wanting to keep the front on all the time. I'll tell you a little story. Oh God, several decades ago, I went to an early morning breakfast networking organization in my locality, and it was my first visit, and I have to say there were mainly men. I think there was one other woman, but nevertheless, in this breakfast, and they did their spots and their 1 minute, and you know, all kinds of things. And when I left, I felt really awful. And I thought, why am I feeling so awful? And then I suddenly realized so many of them had been depressed. I was picking up their energy.
Yes. I think we do that, don't we?
That route, thank you very much indeed. Because they were all solopreneurs or, you know, small business owners. And you're right, it's a really tough time, and we do have tough times. And the best thing to do when we have tough times is to use them as fallow times. Those are not times to be pushing yourself to go out or make calls or anything like that. Your number one priority is to listen to your depression if you are depressed, or even if you're just a low mood. Listen to that mood. What's it trying to tell you? Listen to what it says. And you might get very bizarre answers, like you might get a green banana suddenly come into your mind, which seems ridiculous. But when you're working with your subconscious or your unconscious, things don't necessarily come in a logical way. So whatever message you get, you sit with and see what, what's that really, oh, green banana, the time's not right,
Yeah.
or something like that.
We have to listen to ourselves. I think a lot of people, me included, you sort of push yourself to the side an awful lot because I've got to do this, my list is this long, I've got, 20 tasks to do on it today. And you get so focused into that you forget about yourself, and you're you're an engine, and if you don't nurture it and service it and give it a tickle here and there, that's when we start to break down.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about good energy in. Good energy in, you'll have good energy coming out. But if you're just bombarding yourself with to-do lists and never, because that's awful, because you never catch up. You
No.
never catch up. So forget to-do lists. Just have the night before, have a priority, priority notes for the next day. What are the things that are absolutely crucial for you to do tomorrow to support your business? That's it.
Yeah, it's very simple. Otherwise, well, it's like a dog trying to catch its own tail.
Yeah, and continual stress biochemically triggers depression. So, you really want to make sure that you're taking good care of yourself.
On your journey in business, doing what you're doing, which, by the way, I think is really important to everybody, has it been a smooth road, or has there been a few roadworks along the way?
There's been a lot of roadworks along the way. So about 30 years ago or so, I qualified as a psychotherapist, and over the time I've trained in many disciplines. I've trained as a coach, all that kind of thing. And to begin with, it's really funny, isn't it? I think I've been supported greatly, because at a time when I was struggling on my own, because I didn't yet know about marketing and stuff like that, an opportunity came along to work with some large organizations with their staff. So that really supported me for a while, but I knew it wasn't just this. It wasn't just that there was something else. And so I've tried a few things that at the time seemed appropriate that were absolute disasters. And one of the most recent ones was I spent a hell of a lot of money on branding to become the Passion Whisperer.
Ooh.
I know, and I wrote a book which is Whack Around the Head, Purpose, Passion and Power at Work Right Now, which is a great book. But the Passion Whisperer didn't work. It just didn't work. But remember I said your depression's always got a message for you, but I wasn't listening. And I was pushing it and pushing it. And I compiled this book, How Women Changed the World with Passion, which was a series of interviews with people. And I went to a publishing day where publishers were there, and to tell you, what they wanted from a book. So by lunchtime, I knew that it was too long and it needed edited, and I knew how to edit it. By the end of the day, when I stood up from my seat, I got what I call a download. And in my head, I heard, "You're writing the wrong book, Depression." And part of me, well, most of me went, "Oh no, I'm trying to get away from psychotherapy and stuff like that and more of the coaching, and oh no, I don't want to write about depression, blah, 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 blah." And so I had this wonderful fight with myself for a little while, because the message was so clear, that's where you need to focus. And eventually I did the only sane thing, and I surrendered. And Bounce Back UK was born. But, when I look back, I've tried different things. And I think that's a secret of entrepreneurs, actually, that we are creative. We do try different things. and you know, some of them fail.
Absolutely. It's never straight, is it?
No, and that's okay, as long as you're conscious enough to go, oh, that this one isn't working, this is not working, you know, about turn, rethink, adapt, or whatever. I think that story about being the passion whisperer and suddenly getting this download is kind of an illustration of you have to be open to, what should we call it? I call it your inner wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Other people will call it the divine. Other people call it the universe. Doesn't matter what names you call it. But you have a core wisdom that lets you know when you're going the wrong way.
I think I've heard some people call it your inner child as well.
For me, it's not inner child. It's way beyond, you know, inner child is part of your personality.
Mm-hmm.
But this is you know, another level of experience, really. And you know, and you get told you're going the wrong way, and this is the way to go, and you may not want to go there. And reality is, if that's part of what you're here for on Earth, in the end you have to go there or end up with severe depression.
Yeah, you constantly will be hitting a brick wall in some way, and it just drives you down, doesn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that happens with a lot of clients with depression. They've gone in the wrong direction for them.
Mm-hmm. Trouble is, you don't realise it when you're in it, so it's being able to sort of see it and recognise it and say, ah, like you, there was that message. So it's knowing how to listen to it.
Well, there are ways that you can listen to it. One of the easiest ways, actually, is to take a few deep breaths and focus right down into your belly,
Mm-hmm.
right into your guts, and then just trusting your own inner wisdom. Just ask it whatever question you want to ask it. If you get nothing, that's fine. Just sit with the nothing, and then you might get an answer the day after or the day after that. But as I said, you might get a bizarre answer. That's it. Take it, even if you don't understand it, because it's coming from a different brain,
Yeah.
a different part of your brain. You know, the cerebral cortex is logical and thinking, great, 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 but then we miss out on a load of other intelligence. For example, neuroscience has shown that there are similar tissues and neurotransmitters in the gut and in the heart. So now they're talking about a heart brain and a gut brain. But those of us trained in ancient traditions have known that from the year dot, as it were. But neuroscience is proving it now. So you have all that other intelligence that you don't normally access at your disposal. So, you know, there are ways to access that which aren't challenging, really. It's just talking to yourself.
And it's okay to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So how can people get in touch with you?
Okay, so they can get in touch with me through my website,
Mm-hmm.
which is Bounce Back UK, all one word,
Mm-hmm.
bouncebackuk.com. I'm on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
at Twitter as Sharon Eden. I'm on LinkedIn as Sharon Eden. And you could always email me at sharon@bouncebackuk.com.
Fantastic. And you must keep us posted on your book as well, so that, you know, when it's printed and ready, we maybe pop back on and we'll have a chat about it.
That would be wonderful. What I'll do is send you a copy.
Wonderful. And I know as well that you also send out daily inspirations, don't you, through your website?
Oh, yes.
And I love those.
Thank you. Yes, people can sign up for one of my bounce back prompts, and they're just virtually one-liners that arrive in your inbox about 5:30 in the morning, and they're just inspirational and motivational bonbo, I think is the word.
I love that. I love it. And they are really good. So listeners, please do pop over to bouncebackuk.com and sign up and get in touch with Sharon as well.
Thank you, Helen.
You're welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you to my listeners for tuning in. I'll be back soon with another interview with one of my amazing guests. You can also check them out on my website, which is thehelenwindershow.com. I'll speak to you all very soon. Bye for now.